Welcome. Today we're digging into something that trips up a lot of AAC teams. How do you actually pick the right grid size for a new communication device user?
It's such a common question. And I think the biggest mistake people make right off the bat is choosing a grid based on what someone can understand linguistically instead of what they can physically see and access.
Right, and that's really the guiding principle here. You want to choose the largest grid the person can accurately access with their vision and motor skills, not the smallest grid they can cognitively understand.
Which sounds backwards to a lot of parents and even some clinicians. The instinct is fewer buttons must be easier. But research and clinical experience show that limiting vocabulary can actually slow language development, not help it.
So let's break down the factors that actually should drive this decision. First up, vision. Can the person visually discriminate between symbols? Can they find a target among many options?
And you have to consider things like visual impairments or cortical visual impairment, CVI. If vision is the limiting factor, that's when you'd look at larger buttons or fewer buttons per page, not because of cognition.
Second factor is motor access. How accurate is their direct touch? Is there fatigue, tremors, limited range of motion?
And this is a big one people miss. If someone can accurately hit small buttons using a key guard, a stylus, head mouse, or eye gaze, they might actually handle a much larger grid than you'd expect.
Third is language needs. AAC has to support requesting, commenting, asking questions, social interaction, learning new vocabulary, even literacy development.
And a small grid often kills that potential because core vocabulary ends up buried across multiple pages, which makes richer communication so much harder to reach.
Which brings us to the fourth factor, cognitive considerations. And this is where the research is pretty clear. Cognitive ability should not be the primary factor in choosing grid size.
Exactly. People learn where words are through motor planning and repeated exposure. Consistent button locations build automaticity over time. It's not about understanding every word up front.
Let's talk about actual grid sizes for a second, because there's a real range out there. 2 to 9 buttons is typically for significant visual or motor limitations. Large targets, but very limited vocabulary.
Then you've got 12 to 20 buttons for emerging access skills, 30 to 45 for many beginning communicators, and 60 to 84 or more for users with adequate vision and motor skills.
And the trade-off is pretty simple. More buttons means more core vocabulary immediately available and fewer page changes, but the buttons get smaller. The rule of thumb, button size should only be as large as necessary for successful access.
Think about it like a keyboard analogy. Most kids don't know every letter when they start typing, but we don't cover half the keyboard to compensate. The vocabulary grows into the system over time.
So what does this look like practically? Instead of a tiny page with just eat, drink, more, stop, a larger grid could include words like I, you, go, like want, help, not, finished, look, turn, open, different, in, on, big, little.
That's a completely different level of communication. You're not just requesting things, you're building actual sentences and expressing yourself in a much richer way.
So how do you actually assess this in practice? Start by determining the smallest button size the person can reliably select. Then trial several grid sizes, say 20, 40, and 60 buttons.
And while you're trialing, watch for accuracy, speed, fatigue, visual search behavior, and frustration level. Then choose the largest grid they can consistently access and keep symbol locations consistent throughout the trials.
Let's hit some common mistakes before we wrap up. Choosing a grid based on IQ or cognitive level. Reducing vocabulary to avoid overwhelming someone. Frequently changing grid sizes or moving vocabulary around.
And prioritizing big pictures over available language, or assuming beginners should start with only a few symbols. All of these can really limit long-term growth.
So if you remember one thing from this episode, let it be this. We don't choose grid size based on how much language a person currently knows. We choose it based on how much language they can physically access.
That shift in thinking is everything. It gives AAC users a robust system that can actually grow with them instead of one they outgrow in a few months. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.